Correspondent Trey Yingst. He's live from Washington, D.C. Had traveled there from his base in the Middle East for the dinner. And Trey, I was just with you in the Middle East a couple of weeks ago. You, more than probably anybody in that room, military vets aside, are very used to seeing combat, to seeing dangerous situations. You've dodged more missiles than most people on Earth. You have seen so many terrible things up close. So I imagine you were, in many ways, one of the calmest people in that room. But so many in that room have not been through what you've been through. And it must have been a terrifying experience for a lot of people around you.
Yeah, Jonathan, my first thought was to take cover and then check on the people around me. I was sitting next to the Secretary of Transportation, Sean Duffy, and at that moment, we didn't know if the gunfire was inside of the ballroom or just outside. And immediately, you saw the Secret Service and law enforcement inside this ballroom storm to the middle of the room. There were men in tactical gear on the stage as they rushed the president and the vice president away. And this was a room not just filled with journalists, but also cabinet officials. And so that was the top priority of the Secret Service then, to make sure that they could secure the Secretary of War, the Secretary of Transportation, the Director of National Intelligence, and others to get out of harm's way as quickly as possible before they locked down this ballroom. But it was a very tense moment. Some people were laying flat on the ground, others hiding under tables, shaking and crying. And it gives you a sense of just how quickly things can change. And just feet outside of that ballroom is where this security entrance is. And that's where this incident took place. This gunman you saw in that video there storming this checkpoint that was meant to ensure that no one was entering this space with weapons. And these law enforcement officers acted so quickly, and they were able to apprehend this 31-year-old suspect. But this could have been a very, very different story had they not acted so quickly and stopped this man before he entered the ballroom. This is a very tight and congested space. It's very difficult to move around. And again, the next door that gunman would have entered was the ballroom. And so it was a crisis that was really averted as a result of these quick-thinking Secret Service officers who were there at that checkpoint. Jonathan?
And Trey, I wonder how chilling you find it to think that as you guys, all of you, were filing into that ballroom, getting ready to celebrate journalism, to hear from the president. This man apparently, we don't know the full details yet, but apparently was upstairs in a guest room, gathering his weapons, presumably, and planning that attack, where if he had made it through those ballroom doors, as we've said in the previous hour, he wasn't going to wait to find one specific target if he had one specific target in mind. He was going in all guns blazing. That is a chilling thought to think he was waiting upstairs planning that moment.
Absolutely. And as this security event was unfolding, you really saw the best of the entire D.C. press corps on display. People were looking out for each other, and there was no divide among the press. There was a focus on making sure everyone in that room was as safe as possible. But it was a scary moment for many people there as this was unfolding just on the outskirts of this ballroom. And when you think about the planning that likely went into this, it is reported that he was a guest at the hotel and knew that the president was going to be at this event. And when you think about the security protocols, there is a perimeter to this hotel. When you go into the Washington Hilton for this dinner, and I've been more than 10 years, it is a very strict security apparatus. You have multiple different layers of armed security, ensuring that people who are entering actually have a ticket to go in, and then ultimately you go through a metal detector into this ballroom. But the fact that this man was staying at the hotel, he was already inside the security perimeter when people were entering. These journalists and cabinet officials were there. It was a very calm moment beforehand because everyone was there to celebrate the First Amendment, to celebrate journalists. This was supposed to be an opportunity to present scholarships to young journalists and to present the D.C. Press Corps with awards for their reporting throughout the year. And it turned into a very somber moment. I spoke with a senior White House official earlier today who said this reminded him of Butler, Pennsylvania. This is an administration that saw 2 attempts on the life of President Trump. And so to have all of these officials in one room, it is a very stressful thing to remember for these people. And it is something that, unfortunately, this press corps is familiar with, having covered. And when you think about the Washington Hilton, this is where there was an attempt on the life of President Reagan. And again, it was just a chilling night and a chilling moment for the people in that room as this chaos was unfolding. But there was also one moment as a top advisor to President Trump, Dan Scavino, as he was being escorted out by Secret Service, he turned to the crowd and for a moment chanted USA. And it was a powerful moment because this was such a chaotic event as this gunman was trying to storm the ballroom. And Scavino took that moment to just turn to these American citizens. And at that moment, there was no divide between the cabinet and the press corps. It was all Americans in the room and Americans who were under threat as this gunman was trying to storm the area. And again, these fast thinking and fast acting Secret Service officers, and you see here in tactical gear storming the stage and rushing President Trump off the stage. The vice president rushed off the other side of the stage. And again, those cabinet officials who were spread throughout the ballroom immediately had their security pulling them out of harm's way. It speaks to the preparation of these law enforcement officers for such a moment to take place. It's a moment that no one wants to happen. It's one of these things that you hope never happens, but these law enforcement officials are prepared for such an event to take place. And just to give you a sense, Jonathan, of how tense it was inside the room as this was unfolding, you had people hiding under tables. Many were crying and shaking. We saw people inside this ballroom unaware of what was actually taking place because it was so chaotic at that moment. And these Secret Service officers, some of them in tactical gear, going to the stage, and they had weapons raised over this ballroom because it wasn't clear at that moment if the gunman had made it into this area where there were thousands of people, around 2,000 guests, the president of the United States and these top cabinet officials. And so it really was a crisis averted as a result of the fast action of the Secret Service and the law enforcement officials on the scene. But a chaotic night, and certainly one that people will remember here in the nation's capital as something that really was just one moment away from a much larger disaster. Jonathan?
Yeah, and thank goodness it was not. Thank goodness nobody has been seriously hurt. Thank goodness that one Secret Service officer is apparently going to be fine. In the light of that, Trey, I want to ask you on a personal level. I know how important, as a former White House correspondent, the Correspondents' Dinner is to you. I know how seriously you take the responsibility of journalism and how much you care about it. I also know that you really deserved a break from conflict. You have been through so much over the last few years. You come to D.C. for an event which is important to you, but also is one that hopefully you could relax at a bit. And then this happens. I wonder how you feel tonight, just how you, Trey Yingst, feels.
I would say Fox News is built for these moments. Again, we, as journalists, hope that these horrific events of violence never happen. But when they do, we are there to cover them. And you saw that immediately, the talent of Fox on display, from the executive team to the correspondents who were attending this dinner. Immediately, once they were able to be sure that everyone around them was safe, they flipped a switch into news mode, into news gathering. And it was remarkable to see in real time how quickly people were gathering information on their phones, from Jackie Heinrich to Peter Doocy to all of the anchors, Martha McCallum, Harris Faulkner, Sandra Smith, and Shannon Bream. Everyone was working together, and you saw that video from Brian Kilmeade. The executive team as well, working on live view apps and trying to get phone calls out. We were calling from inside this ballroom as it was locked down live to the audience to give them a picture of what it was like inside this hotel, the Washington Hilton in the nation's capital. And again, this just speaks to the journalism. This was a room filled with journalists who immediately sprung into action to cover this historic moment.
I tried to get the great Trey Yingst to talk about himself, as always. Mr. Yingst gives all the plaudits to others. We are so lucky to have you. You're a rock star and a gentleman, Trey Yingst. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.